Enjoy the show.
Beaming at you from the depths of the internet.
This is the Temple of Geek podcast, your one stop for all things geek.
Welcome to the Temple of Geek podcast. My name is Suhaila and I will be your host today as we share our thoughts on the second season of Carnival Row. If you haven't watched the show, save this episode for later and come back because there will be spoilers. If this is your first time tuning into Temple of Geek, welcome. The Temple of Geek podcast has been around since 2012 and is hosted by various geeks from the Temple of Geek team. Here we cover all manner of geek and pop culture news and events. To our returning listeners, thank you again for tuning in. We really appreciate you being here. With me today is a special guest. Welcome to the podcast. Can you briefly introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them a little bit about you?
Hi guys, my name is Kari, aka Star Wars Tia. I'm a nerdy content creator. Also sometimes, do little collaborations with Temple of Geek as well. You can find me on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram as Kari Skywalker. So I'm so glad to be here right now.
Awesome. I'll introduce myself as well. My name is Suhaila. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok at SUS Theories, so Sue's Theories. I talk about a variety of shows. I also make earrings based off of the shows that I'm watching. And every so often I'll have a random theory. So let's get started. So Carnival Row Season 2, what are your initial reactions, thoughts?
I just love that we got, it was just straight back into, the continuation of how we left off. And it was like immediately just still, very fast paced. It didn't slow down. I like that the show has such a lot of elements from the real world of the issues that we're dealing with. And so I love that they brought that here in a fantasy type of storytelling. But I thought it was great. I loved it. The way they finally resolved the issues and stuff like that. In the end, it went a little bit too fast for me.
Yeah, you're right. Like we jumped right back in as soon as season 1 finished. Season 2 starts, and I did rewatch season 1 just to make sure that I was familiar with the story again because it's been a few years. The season did not slow down. It was interesting watching season 2 right after season 1 again because there is a lot of parallels between the seasons, and then there was a lot more happening in season 2.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see some of the characters growing and kind of taking on slightly new roles. And some characters that we didn't see as much of in season 1 being fleshed out a little bit more in season 2.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. I thought maybe it was they were kind of almost doing a little bit too much at times. There was, again, just having watched season 1 and then season 2 right away, there's a lot of similarities that they maybe could have done without. We have another monster in season 2, and just season 1, somebody takes the role of the witch in season 1 kind of thing. But it was really interesting to see some of the characters kind of move away from the main location and go to new places.
Yes.
That was really interesting.
Cool. Really, really cool. Yeah.
What was your favorite part of the story or favorite characters? Dive into some of the details.
I really liked how, was her name, was it Tourmaline?
Tourmaline,
Tourmaline.
Yeah.
They gave her a much bigger role this season.
Yes.
And I like how they made her the person who was basically, she was the pivotal person. It was through her that everybody was that they were able to find out what was really going on, with the whole, monster thing and everything. And that they gave her that power that transferred from Aofi was her name, I believe. The witch. But I think that was probably my favorite character in the season. The character development for her was really cool, just from being Vignette's, best friend who worked at a brothel to now taking a more pivotal role in the whole season.
Yeah. I love how she was also fearless and just kind of jumping in because there's obviously again, we're getting into spoilers here, but she foresees her death, right? Pretty early on, but that doesn't stop her from trying to help and trying to do the right thing and jumping in and almost recognizing that her role is really important despite, the end that she sees for herself.
Yeah.
Right? And I love that. And it's interesting because Vignette from season 1 was the fearless one who's just kind of jumping in, but in season 2, she's still doing that, but she's flip-flopping a lot.
Yes.
She's almost unsure of herself. She's unsure of who to, be loyal to or who to fight for or who to be. And it was interesting kind of seeing Vignette now hesitate and then having Tourmaline be more of like the anchor in the show.
Yeah.
I also really enjoyed that we saw more of Darius, and then, you know, Tourmaline and Darius's little, I mean, I don't know if we'd necessarily call it a romance,
Yeah.
fling. You know, there was definitely chemistry there between them.
I really thought,
I mean, I understand why nothing happened, but I also really was. I was like
that was going to
rooting
be
for something.
Endgame. I thought that was going to be Endgame too. I'm like, oh my god, the way he's like, you know, looking after her and like really protective and stuff. I'm like, oh my god, that was so cute.
Yeah, and the way she's like not again the fearlessness. She's not afraid of him. She's like, you know, I love that. I love the little like their friendship. Friendship, relationship, whatever. I wanted there to be more between them because they were just so cute.
Yeah, they were.
There was quite a bit of chemistry there, but obviously, I mean, we know why that didn't end up happening in the end. Any other characters that, you know, you enjoyed, or even some of the newer characters that they introduced, any that you found interesting?
Sophie, I believe it was Sophie Longerbane. That was ended up being Jonas, like, you know, like the reveal, like the plot twist. I was like, what?
Yeah.
But I like it because she was playing such an amazing like role as this, I'm here to, you know, take over. But she also had her own agenda in the back, which was actually helping the Fae because of her best friend, you know. And it was just crazy how she presented herself as being like fearless and like nobody can mess with me. But then we see that in the back, it was her friend, the one that was actually the one controlling everything and basically telling her what to do. I liked her introduction, and I liked the role that she played in this, you know, trying to, you know, control and manipulate everything. I really enjoyed that role from her.
I really love how she took advantage of the fact that they were going to underestimate her and just like went for it.
Yeah.
And she was like playing so many different like cards in the background, and like nobody knew what she was doing for the longest time. Like she was, pulling a bunch of strings, you know, behind the scenes to try to get to a better way forward, not just for herself, because as a woman in this society, she's not afforded the same, you know, power and luxuries, even though she is like the daughter of the opposition, to in parliament, right? Like, and then she becomes the head of, you know, the opposition, I guess by inheritance, but they're still not taking her seriously. And she recognizes that like her role in society is very similar to the Fae's role in society, in that she's never, you know, they're never going to be able to get, you know, power if she doesn't, you know, if she also doesn't get it as well. Like, and recognizing where the power is and then trying to, I guess, manipulate.
Yes.
Because with
Yona, her brother.
Jonah, there we go. Yes, Jonah. Yes, her brother lover.
Oh my god. When I realized, I was like, wait,
No, it's that. Yeah, I think that reveal happened towards the end of season 1, and then in season 2, like they're still like considering getting married. And I'm like, like it's one thing if you didn't know, and the audience is privy to that information, but the two of them, I guess nobody else knew, and so they're just like you know, if they were to get married or whatever, then they'd basically be unbeatable. And Jonah was interesting because most of the episodes that I saw him in, I was like, he's useless. Like, he's really not doing much. And he's just very like, he's too weak to be in that position. And he's just kind of like relying on other people. And it's interesting how much he relies on her. But then he takes it so personally when he sees that she's not telling him everything. And then does a full 180 and completely switches on her. Which, I mean... It makes sense that he would.
And I'm surprised that he actually stepped up and, you know, kind of like
made that decision
and stuff. Because, you know, like you said, it was like always like, oh my God, he's just letting everybody just like, you know, push him around and, whatever mother says. And, you know, just like being the spoiled little brat. Then finally he actually kind of like was decisive for once in that moment. So that was pretty cool. And I like, you know what, even though we know that she was doing things the wrong way, I was kind of still rooting for her because of the system that she was having to fight against. I was like, you know what? Play them. Go ahead. I mean, at the end of the day, my main concern was the Fae. I wanted them to be okay. So, you know what? And she was fighting against that same system that was oppressing the Fae. So I was like, you know what? Go ahead. Do you.
Yeah, and she was playing the long game too. Like even when Jonah found out like the dealings kind of behind closed doors, he still only saw it as like a short-sighted measure.
Yeah.
That she wants to be chancellor. He's not seeing kind of where, the 10 steps ahead that she's at, because that wasn't her end goal.
Yeah.
That was, just one step to get there.
Yeah.
But then when he realized she was manipulating him, because
I
guess she didn't trust him
really
because he wasn't very
surprised.
smart. But
I was really surprised that he actually went through with beheading her. I was like, they actually did it. I was like, wow. I was like, holy shit.
I was like, there's no way he's going to be able to make that order. And I thought somebody else was going to have to step in for him again. Because wasn't she the one who stepped in when they were executing the Fae in the beginning of season 2? I think she steps in for him. She gives the order.
And gives the order,
non-verbally, on his behalf. But now he got to a point where he's now doing it, and because it was personal for him, that's when he he was essentially taking revenge on her without really understanding her story or anything. He just
immediately went to being like, you know what, I need to get rid of you because you're a danger to me and whatever. And I was like, literally, I really thought that right at the end he was gonna be like, no, wait, hold on, because of his feelings for her, because he did care for her in his own way.
I think they did care for each other in a very non-conventional
very non-conventional way. I mean, we know that she was using him to further her agenda, but that was still her brother, and she really said that it was both of them were basically abused growing up, emotionally and mentally by their parents, regardless,
Exactly.
So she did sympathize with him and basically related to him in that way. So she did have that type of sentiment there, but regardless, at the end, it was just like, I'm still gonna have to, F you over because I have a purpose, I have a goal. So yeah.
And I think it's also because she sees him for who he is, and she recognizes that he's not going to have the mettle to do the things that are needed to be done.
Yeah.
And even though she does care about him and she wants him to be involved, she can't rely on him or trust him because he's too influential and too it's too easy to sway him.
Yeah.
Which was to her benefit, but then again is the reason why she couldn't, partner up with him and actually do what needed to be done.
Yeah.
I wish we got more of her. She was such an interesting character, and I wish we could have.
I didn't think they were going to kill her off, because she was mid-season, right? It was in the middle of the season, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
I thought she was going to be basically one of the main antagonists the whole season.
Yeah, I was hoping we would get to see her take over power and then things go sideways. But at the same time, this is actually pretty realistic of somebody in her position trying to kind of make a difference. And it's before she's just as she's starting to put the foundations down, it just turns on her. Yeah, I found it interesting as well, other characters that we saw with Agreus and
Agreus and Imogen.
Imogen, there we go.
Imogen.
The new place that they go to in the pact, that commune.
It was a commune,
right?
yes.
It was.
Yeah.
I found those characters really interesting, and I was really excited when we first got there because I'm like, oh, look at this paradise, whatever. And then immediately they started presenting it as it's this shady place, right? It's too good to be true. And I was like, oh, there's the propaganda.
Yes, there is.
Right?
Yes.
And even the characters who were in that commune, they had pretty particular accents, if you notice. Again, just to add to that, oh no, these people aren't good, kind of thing. Which
when I took that turn, I was like, did they have to really go that way with the whole thing?
I was Lenora, I thought was really compelling, and with the history that she had and how she was able to get to create this environment, not just her obviously on her own, but being the leader of the group of Fae and humans who created this haven and safe space that actually was working, right? It was working until the pact came and invaded, and it was working despite Agreus and Imogen being there and being reluctant, right? They were immediately skeptical, and I think that's. And it was actually interesting when they showed more of Agreus and Imogen's past, because then you realize the reason they're skeptical isn't because of this commune, it's because of their own history. Right? They've both done really terrible things, and they can't believe that there's a place that functions like this. That they could be a part of, and they're just oh, we need to leave, we need to get out of here, we need to go, and just save ourselves, and that selfishness that they've had pretty much their entire
Yeah,
lives.
yeah. I think Agreus has too much wanting to be accepted so badly
Yeah.
by the same people that wanted
It's
to
trauma.
yeah, exactly. So I figured he wasn't going to want to stay there. And then
No.
the type of lifestyle that he wanted, he already had it in his mind. He could never change that about himself, because in his mind he's
Yeah.
like, I did way too much stuff in my past to get to where I am, for me to just give it up like that, just to go back to basics, So yeah, definitely. I really did love that, that also was a twist, that there was also this second player in the background also causing all these things in, in the mainland where, wherever they live, where the humans live or whatever. Like that, it ended up being them that actually were, playing even the bigger game. And then, let's say, Sophie was playing, that was really cool. That reveal at the end of who it was and who was a monster and everything. That was really cool.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that. And I wish we had seen more of that, like earlier on. Cause like you said, like towards the end, everything happens so quickly. And there's so many moving parts. And that's part of it, is like, we realize that like Red Dawn. Yeah. Lenora's group,
Lenora's people.
they were behind everything. And like, we didn't really see that coming. And it's because they didn't really set that up initially. It was just so much focus on Agreus and Imogen.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. Like, I thought that, getting to see a little bit more of them outside of their element was interesting.
Yeah.
But I feel like we dwelled a little too much on them when we could have been seeing more of what was happening in the commune, and more of,
everything else around
their plans and everything, right? Because like they become the main player.
Yeah,
in the second
exactly.
half of the show.
I definitely we could have spent more time with Lenora and how they were doing things, and what they really were about. Especially like, oh man, when they showed what they did with the people that kind of disagreed with them, I was like, wow. I'm like, why? Again, they didn't have to take that way, because I mean, you're also killing children and stuff, but it's like, all right.
Yeah.
I mean,
and we have seen both the Pact and the Burg do worse horrors towards the Fae in their own homeland, and in the Burg. We didn't really get to see the Pact much, other than the New Dawn. I looked it up. They're called
the New Dawn.
Yeah, other than the New Dawn with Lenora, like the way that they frame the atrocities that the New Dawn does is very different than how they frame the Burg and Philo's participation and Darius's participation as like remorseful, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we did evil things because we were like told, but we're remorseful, and it's very individualistic to Philo and Darius, like as characters.
Yes.
But then when you see the New Dawn, it's like, look at the horrors they have done, and it's like,
there's
this
like
is
whatever
very
to
much a
them.
double standard.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying this isn't horrible. It's definitely horrible what they have done and what they have, had to do in order to achieve their little bubble of peace and serenity. But then it's just interesting the way the show frames it compared to the worst horrors and atrocities that, again, the Burg and the Pact have done.
Yes. They don't show us. I mean, with like Philo and his friend and stuff, like you said, they show them remorseful, but just individually, and stuff like. That this is not how everybody else that was fighting in that war was feeling. They were probably they were very probably like, oh yeah, no, this is the right thing to do. Very bigoted against, the Fae and stuff. So, and we see that in the Burg with how the people treat everybody else, that all the Fae that live there and stuff. But we should have, the route that they went really, didn't sit well with me. Because I was like, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
Why do you have to taint it all the time with something that's like not realistic,
Exactly. And the Pact they did always kind of frame as evil. It was the Burg that like, once I saw what they were doing with the Red Dawn, or sorry, the New Dawn, it annoyed me how they were like presenting the Burg and how they were involved, right? And because even in the same season, where they're like, oh yeah, we're going to send the Fae back because Turnanok is free. And in the exact same thing, they're sending like ships with soldiers to like retake it. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, this is the better of all the evils that are out there. Like, how do you like not see the Berg, or at least like the governing body of the Berg as like completely, as like vile, evil, you know,
with their own
apparatus.
agenda, just using these poor people, these poor Fae, as, you know, a means to an end, and not caring what was going to happen to them. Like, why are you going to send them over there if they're going to be over there also probably living the same way that they were living in the Berg, you know, if you're just going to retake it.
Exactly. It was just going to be another occupation. And then going back to Philo and Vignette, I think that's what annoyed me about them so much in season 2 is because they're both aware of the horrors. They were both in the wars, and they kept flip-flopping back and forth, and they kept showing everything that Vignette was trying to do as like a form of protest, as well as the Black Ravens as like essentially terrorists, right? Which I understand that that's how the Berg sees them, because obviously it's like, you know, this is our place. Yes, we have ruined your homeland and you're now here.
Yes.
But you still can't, you know, harm us. But that's what annoyed me with how the relationship between Philo and Vignette happened and how that played out, because Philo was still trying to like have, you know, one foot in each world. It's like, you can't do that when, you know, this is the situation. And he kept trying to like, not that I'm agreeing with some of the choices that that Vignette had, but him kind of still going out for a limb for the cops, for, you know, Parliament, for whatever, given how there's, you know, how much worse they even made it for the Fae. That conflict to me didn't make like as much sense, because like Philo, again, like at end of season 1, he had made his choice. You know, he chose the side of the Fae, and then he sees how much, you know, worse things are getting. And I love that he like just he made that choice and he went to stay with them, as opposed to like, you know, being like, oh, I'll save you from the outside, because he's like, he's in the trenches, he sees how things are going, and then he still like keeps flip-flopping back and forth, right? And I'm like, Philo, come on.
You have to pick a side. Like, you can't win a war trying to play both sides. Like, you know, trying to fight for both sides, you know?
Especially when you're seeing, like, firsthand, and you've already seen firsthand the horrors, and it's been done to you, right? Like, he lost his wings as a baby. Like, he has the scars as evidence of, you know, the society and how, you know, he wouldn't be accepted in it. And yeah, he's still flip-flopping back and forth. And like, I understand that he has this history, you know, being a detective or a cop or whatever, like being part of that, and like feels he still has a duty. I understand that, but again, pick a side and like stick to it.
Yeah. What we see at the end is basically what he always wanted, like, you know, how the season ended and stuff of, you know, now we're going to have the Fae involved and everything. But I think that didn't seem too realistic to me, because things, it's not that easy for a society that deemed the Fae like such inferior beings and everything, just to be like, yeah, because, oh, now Philo came in, he's talking sense, we're gonna go and with what he said. Like that didn't make any sense, because that's not how things work, you know?
Yeah. But he also declined the position of power that would put him, like, I was like, what are you doing?
Isn't that was the whole point? Hello, prophecy too? Exactly. Like, you're supposed to be the one that, like, is gonna be up there helping, like, trying to fix everything.
Exactly. And, like, that entire speech, I'm just sitting there and I was like, side-eye. Like, the entire speech. I was like, this is all good and well, but, like you realize by removing yourself from the place that you are uniquely privileged to hold, things are going to get even worse now. Like, it's not even that they're just going to go back to the way they were. It's that they're going to cramp down even more, so that, like, nobody else can even get to the position that he was in as somebody who was half Fae, like, not even full Fae. And he's like, oh, you can't use me as, like, a scapegoat, whatever. I'm like, well, they're not going to have anybody. Like they're never going to let somebody who's full Fae up there. Like,
he said, oh, you should, you know, consider somebody Fae. My dude, just because you're saying it doesn't mean they're going to be like, oh, yeah, you know what? I mean, they all got mad when you said that at the end. Like,
yeah.
Why do you think it's going to happen?
Yeah. And if you're against, you know, resistance involving, like, any form of violence and things like that, like the New Dawn, but then you're not willing to go the path of, like, okay, we'll play by your rules and try to change things using the rules of the oppressor, then like what do you do? Like then there's nothing. Like, there's no resistance. There's no change from the inside. Like then what? Like what are you staying in the Burg to do?
Yeah,
I don't understand.
exactly.
Why did you let Vignette go? Why didn't you go back to Ternanock? Like what are you doing?
Yeah, what was the whole point of you staying there? What are you gonna do with
He
yourself?
basically. Yeah, and at the end of it, I'm like, okay, so he basically just chose his own piece, which, like, I understand, but don't pretend that, you're doing it in order, to further the greater good or whatever, because that's not how this works.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, at the end, I was just, like, not impressed with how
when he did that, I was like, why? I was like, wait, but wasn't how it's supposed to go. He's supposed to be like the whole prophecy. A lot of these murders happen because of some prophecy of what's his name, the dad, Absalom having the son that was gonna come and cause great change. And I'm like, okay, so they were trying to kill you because what's her name, Indira, Piety.
Yeah, Indira's Piety.
Piety. She wanted her son to be that. So now we have all these murders and everything. We finally get you to this position of where you're supposed to be the great one that's going to come and, fight for this change from within. And you're like, no, it's okay. You guys can do it, though. I have faith in you. How do you have faith in these people?
Threw it all like, he just threw it all away. And even who ends up taking over.
Runyon Millworthy?
Yes, Millworthy. Mm-hmm. Like, even he's not there anymore because, like, when he took over after Jonah and Sophie are killed and then he takes over, I'm like, oh, there's a little bit of hope. But he was the one that was behind that, like, double shift thing, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't, like, but when he was talking about it, he's like, I had no choice. In order for me to get you ships, I had to, like, let them do something,
incentive,
right? So it wasn't like he wasn't actively trying to, like, be devious, but it ended up that he had to, like, do something bad in order to do something good, which like that is essentially, when you're in power and you're trying to do right, that's a lot of times, the conflict that happens is like, okay, I want to do this good thing, but there's no way of me doing that without having some other thing sort of, compromise or whatnot.
Compromise my own moral, in order to achieve something, the greater good or whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But even Millworthy wasn't in Parliament at the end, so I'm like, all of the, people who have a brain on their head and actually care about the Fae, all of them are gone. So, like, who's left? It's the original Parliament members from the first season, who,
no Sophie, and no, to like,
and exactly, no Jonah, no Sophie. So it's like whoever they decide between the two parties that is going to be the head of the two parties, but it's all the same people. So it's like, so at the end, nothing moved forward. Nothing happened.
It actually moved backward because now we have nobody in there to actually, speak up for the Fae. At least before they had somebody kind of at least being level-headed,
Yeah, like Jonah was kind of reluctant, but he was doing it because he felt like he had to. Sophie had her whole agenda that she was doing. Millworthy was more openly trying to, like, toe the line. And then we would have had Philo, who would have been a clear, like, opposition to, like, just like in the face of what Parliament means, essentially. But yeah, he threw it all away, and I'm like, Philo.
Like, seriously, Philo, what are you gonna do with yourself anyway? Like, Vignette's not there anymore. You're not a cop, You could have stayed doing
like, did
that.
you really do much as a cop? Like, even when you see him in season 1 as a cop, as a detective trying to help the Fae, was he even really able to do that much? Right?
Yeah.
He was trying, but they, the rest of the cops were, like, in his way. Like the department itself didn't care about the Fae. And so whenever he would, like, bring up, like, oh, so-and-so got killed, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's murders that are happening on the row.
Yeah.
They're like, okay. Cool, that's the row.
It's the row.
Moving on. So, like, so then it's like, so he wasn't even being that effective when he was, you know, in the system at, like, a lower level. And then he gave up being in the system at a higher level. And I'm like, what? It makes negative sense.
And just because there were, like, 1, 2, 3 people that changed their mind about how they felt, like the cop that was, like, so messed up with the Fae, and then he ended up changing his mind. That's one person. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Oh, because now, Grey's and Imogen can be together and nobody's gonna say anything. How do we know that later on they're gonna come back and, reverse all of that? Because it's just those, little handful of people that are like, okay, yes, we're good right now. We kind of changed.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean the majority of the people changed.
Exactly. And that Sergeant Dombey, the guy who he started kind of becoming more friendly to the Fae. It wasn't because of the Fae. It was because Philo saved his life, essentially. And then he was like having to be on Philo's side. And then he eventually was like, all right, I guess I don't have to be as much of an asshole.
Exactly.
to the Fae.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially when he was like caught up in like the riots that happened in the row at the end where, the constable, whoever, crazy dude.
Yeah. Yes.
I think Constable, no, it wasn't Cuppins. Thatch, there we go. Constable Thatch, when he led a bunch of
other cops
and I was like, okay, like this is realistic to me. Like, and it wasn't just cops, but like leading cops and a mob of people to go in and burn the row down. And then when you had the resistance from the New Dawn, and he kind of saw all of the craziness happen and Philo get shot and all of that. Yeah. That's like when he started being like, okay, things are going to get super out of hand. Yeah. It's not that he like actually, became better, but he's like, I don't want a repeat of this shenanigans.
Yes, exactly.
That's kind of what it feels like. It's like
it was just self-serving,
That's what it felt like at the end of the day. It was self-serving.
Yeah.
And so it's like, like when you hit the end of season 2 and you go back to the beginning of season 1, I'm like, what changed? I mean, Turn to Knock is free. They don't explain how or how all that happens. It's just now like paradise. And we finally got to see it like looking beautiful.
Yes.
So that's nice. But it's like, couldn't that change at any moment? Like, I'm like, everything else is the same.
From so going it feels back to, for them, what's stopping it? If there's no laws right now and then Philo's not there to help create those laws to protect Turn to Knock,
Yeah, there's a power vacuum in the Pact as well on the military side because both, who we find out is the monster and is working with the New Dawn, but then also like the guy who's superior to him, the ambassador, I think it was, who like the Pact ambassador who's there, like they both get killed, and there's no explanation as to what's happening with the Pact, and with the New Dawn, like Lenora's gone.
The New Dawn is, and then we don't even know what happened to the commune. No,
exactly. Well, I guess they get like invaded by the Pact with all of like the weapons that they got from the Burg.
Yeah.
And that's why like Agreus and Imogen had to leave.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
and I guess her brother was fighting.
That's what I'm saying. So what happened to those people?
Yeah. And it's like, well, and how big is the New Dawn? Like we never really get like an idea because once they go to the Burg and they're working with the Black Ravens, you really only see Lenora and maybe one or two other people. Kane, was it? Castor. And then you see the Black Ravens and you can't really see how, we don't know how big the New Dawn is or what else they were involved with.
Yeah.
And then it just they just kind of gave up and I'm like, okay, so but then what's going to happen?
And no, and not only that, but they because we see when the Pack attacks the commune and stuff, basically Lenora and the main players in her group, they just leave them. Then because they want to come do their agenda thing over here in the Burg. So what happened to, you just basically abandoned all these people. But I guess in their mind, they were like, well, we can't do anything else here. If we don't leave, then, we need to save ourselves for the cause to continue. Okay, maybe that was their way of thinking. But then, damn, the whole commune just basically went up in flames.
Yeah, but that's what I'm wondering. I'm like, did other people escape? Did they not have any sort of system? Like they know that the Pact is going to come at some point. Like how were they not, they had guns and weapons, but did they not have an escape plan? Like, did they not have any alternatives? Like it feels like that's very short-sighted for somebody who is so smart at that, got somebody to infiltrate the Pact at a high level and is killing for them. Also, why are they waiting so long to kill all of the senators and whatever, at the Burg. He's visited a few times, or I guess he's been there for a while. I forget whether they had visited or and back and forth, or whether he had stayed there.
Yeah.
But it's what's the wait? right? And instead of like doing that prison break, like why didn't he just go and kill? Like I feel like some of the choices there kind of like
It was just weird, yeah. And then also like just relying on your whole plan, relying on this one creature, like putting your whole plan, like
yeah,
you didn't have a contingency plan in case he got killed, like he did, you know?
seriously. And then that creature, the thing that like kind of bothered me about it, and again I was like at the end, was how it died. It's like,
Yes.
so you're telling me this creature has terrorized and tormented and killed so many cops and so many like people who are armed and like at the boats because
Oh, yeah,
it like
yeah, right.
yeah
Uh-huh.
at the boats because they're like the cop guy was like, hey, like everybody, like we have rifles and we will shoot you down if you try to like fly for the pics. And then this creature comes and they're all just standing there and I'm like, nobody can put a bullet through it. like I
they're
understand maybe they're not
fine.
like great, but they're all just standing there waiting
Yeah.
and like just watching it kill. And then I'm like, why aren't they shooting at like it
Yeah.
like took them forever.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, so like you're armed with rifles to shoot down pics at a moment's notice, but then you do nothing. Like some of the, and I understand the dramatics in the show, but I was also like, just the way that it died, I was like, so it could have died at any point.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And then you just, chose not to have it be killed.
Yeah. It's, of course, plot armor, as they call it, or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But again, it's like the way that it, like, was killed, like, yeah, I that part of it, like, the fact that it, like, left Parliament and its job just because Tourmaline was able to, like, move it around a little bit.
Yeah,
like, to me, I was like, why did, like, if this is your purpose and this is, like, the top mission, something messing with your mind a little bit, you should be able to, like, push through it.
Exactly.
Do the job.
and then leave. I mean, you're strong enough. There was nobody in that building to stop you. Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody could have stopped you if you wanted to kill everybody in that room. Could have done it
Literally.
quickly, easily.
It was a bit to bust through the door.
Yeah. That's it.
Like,
that's all you had to do. Go
Yeah.
kill the whole room easily because you've been killing and we know you kill, very quickly and, very savagely. And then you can leave.
yeah.
But, yeah.
I also,
that's
they
so
never
weird.
quite, yeah, and they never quite explained why it killed Dahlia and I believe his name was Bolero, like the two head of the Black, or like the head of the Black Raven, and I guess the guy who was like either helping her. I don't know if he was, I don't think he was also in charge, but I think he was like one of her like confidants or something.
Oh, I think
why?
No. I think he killed those two ravens to make it seem like it was the Berg and the cops that did it.
Oh, I see.
Because they
like,
I think they put their head
chaos?
on a spike. He put their heads on a spike.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so
but then like what would that have done? Because it's like, because the row is already like being squeezed.
Yeah,
and like doesn't has no love for the Berg.
Yeah, I guess
right?
for like
they're already
super dramatic effect. I mean, that's not Lenora's way of thinking,
guess.
So they just like needed even more of a push. I mean,
I guess.
Yeah.
I really wish that they had like had more of the New Dawn early on, just so we can get more of this, like,
yes, more of her story. I mean, I know they told us her story, like she told her story, but I would have loved to seen like maybe even a flashback of what it was like that led her to the point where she became such like a the way they made her, basically no type of emotions, just this is my plan, I don't care who has to die,
Imogen was talking about how she talked to like a lady and she was being super disrespectful and expecting her to like help in the kitchen and whatever, and just she has like one horn, and then Agreus pointed to the photo behind her or whatever. He's like, you mean her? I thought that there was some sort of like past, and that would have been really interesting.
Yes, that's what I thought too.
Had, like,
I'm like, well, then what was the point of him finding, like, because I thought that was what it was, also, that maybe he knew her.
Yeah, and then the whole, like, mystery around why they captured them and, like, why they kept them and all of that. Because we didn't realize until later that they needed Imogen in order for her voice to be heard in Parliament in the Berg.
Yeah.
But they didn't know that at the beginning, right? Like, they didn't know as soon as she... I guess maybe they thought, like, oh, because of the way she's dressed, she's, like, a lady.
Yeah.
Probably comes from, like, a good family, so I can see that. But it would have been really interesting if Agreus had known Lenora, because that's what I was initially thinking. I'm like, oh, it's someone that he knows, and he screwed her over somehow.
That's exactly. That's what I like. Because we know that, like, one of the focuses during that time was all the stuff that he did in his past and all the things, all the people that he messed over and everything. I was like, oh, is that somebody that he had that type of relationship with, that they were working together at some point, but then he turned against her or something? That would have been a really cool way to go with that.
Yeah, I think that would have been really compelling, and it would have given a lot more to Lenora's character, or like just in terms of the dynamic. Yeah. And also would have given us a little bit more insight into like her motivations, because like even aside from her telling her story, like it's hard to kind of like really, because like it's hard to like understand her as a character, because there's like very little like actions that she's doing, and some of it is like more reactions than actual like
I couldn't empathize with her at all, because she was very just like one-dimensional, very stoic. They
never even show her partner, because I was like, when they did realize that the that monster was like a person and it's a guy, I'm like, that's her partner, like it has to be, because like she like made a point to like say, oh, like he's human, because he would like be able to masquerade as a human. But then they never even like connected. Like there were so many like dots that they could have connected, and they just didn't.
Like I would have loved to see how they met. What was it that
Yeah, we didn't even see her partner. She just talks about him. He's not even walking around or anything.
Yeah. So
maybe it was Castor. I don't know. Like he seems to be like a human who's around her all along. But. Yeah, it was, there was like a lot that they were trying to do with the story. And I think that there was a lot of, like, it was interesting as it was, but I think there was like a lot of potential that they like would have taken it another step. Like up.
I think they cut out a lot. They cut out a lot of stuff. And I was like, oh, wait, but why are we moving over here already when we're still trying to figure this out over here,
The one part that I did enjoy that they kind of fleshed out a little bit more were some of the people in the Black Ravens. There was Cain, and I forget who the other one was, but Cain was pretty prominent, like alongside Vignette. And it was really interesting to see him have like more stakes, essentially, right? Because like his family was dying, right? And like he has experienced the most loss in the Burg, right? Like we don't know his past before the Burg. I would imagine it would be like Vignette's, right? It's just like death, destruction, loss, all sorts of everything, displacement, all of that. I mean, there's a reason he's in with the Black Ravens. But I really appreciated having another character that also like has all of like the trauma involved, but he's like very steadfast in his resolve. It acted like a really great not reflection, but kind of like almost like a mirror almost to like Vignette, and like really showed how her flip-flopping was, like you could see like the flaw in her character, because there was somebody else who was very like, he held on to his resolve the entire time.
And they showed his pain and suffering with, the love of his life basically dying in front of him, and having to ultimately sacrifice herself, and him having to, go along with that plan just because
there was no other choice. Like it was going to happen anyway, right?
Exactly.
And it's like, at least that way she would have had the opportunity to do good. Like it's heartbreaking, like kind of having to be in that position and like having to accept that it's like, well, it's death either way for the love of your life. At least,
this way you go out fighting and for, with a reason or whatever.
I wish we could have seen like more of the stakes to like the individuals in the row as well. Because other than the main characters, we don't really like, we kind of get glimpses of like, there's like the one kid with like, his eye that Agreus, talks to, and eventually we see him like working with Agreus, right? Like we see kind of little hints, here and there. And other than that, like sickness, we don't really see how much worse it's gotten. Like the way that we had kind of seen it between Tourmaline and Vignette in season 1, because Tourmaline was very much like, this is how it's got to be, kind of like this is the only choice I have, her working at the brothel and everything. And so you could really see like, that running away from home to save your life just means another type of like, horror.
Horror.
really.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like with the Row and how things kind of went bad in season 2, we got glimpses, but it was really nice to see, I mean, as heartbreaking as it was, Kane's story to actually have like that like really clear example of like, this is the suffering.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, I mean, I guess, at the end, at least we get Tourmaline and Vignette together, which I didn't see that coming at all. I really thought that she was going to end up with Philo for some reason. And then they both were going to be, working together to make everything better in the Berg. But
that's kind of, I feel like that's like, yes, it was the obvious ending. Like, I get that. But also it would have had the most payoff, in my opinion, after all of that turmoil for them to like, even if they're not together, at least working together. They don't necessarily have to be together. Yeah. Because I'll admit, season 2, for me, there was like no chemistry between Philo and Vignette, like at all. No. Like, I think that's also partly why Tourmaline and Darius was so like, I really wanted it to happen because I'm like, you can see. Yeah. Yeah, but no, Philo and Vignette did not have chemistry, and even then it's like, do you actually like each other? Like, none of you are listening to each other, like, but I guess maybe understanding each other. Maybe
that was the point, like, to say that how they were going there, they're basically decided to go their separate ways, and that put divider in their relationship and then how they felt for each other and stuff. So I guess maybe that was done intentionally and if that was intentional, they did a very good job because definitely you cannot feel the love in the air at all. Yeah.
No, and like I'm pretty sure that is the reason that they like decided to have them kind of go their separate ways, because they were, wanting Vignette and Tourmaline at the end. But it also like, I'm like mad at Vignette. I'm like I don't like how Vignette, it was almost like she was keeping Tourmaline hanging, like maybe not keeping her hanging, but she was like the one who was constantly, like, Tourmaline was always cared for Vignette, was always there for her. And then Vignette like took it for granted in season 1, and then season 2 was still kind of taking it for granted. And even when she like decided that she was going to stay for Tourmaline, it was like she made the decision, but she wasn't super like, she wasn't all in, and it was almost And I'm like, Tourmaline deserves better. Yeah,
but I'm glad that Tourmaline called her out on that, because she did. Yes, she did call her like, you're always choosing something else. You're always choosing somebody else. Yep.
Yeah.
So I was like,
I'm glad that like in the end Tourmaline got to be happy, but I'm also like, Vignette needed to like do better with Tourmaline. Like it felt like because things weren't gonna work out with Philo, then like she was back with Tourmaline. It wasn't so much like, right? Like, again, the flip flopping, like
it was a lot of back and forth with them there.
Yeah. Like season 1, I understand, like, the pining over each other, and then like, finding out that he's alive, and then like, he betrayed her. Like, I understand that turmoil that she went through. Season 2, there wasn't that turmoil. There was like misunderstanding, but it was like done in a way where it's like, are you guys even talking to each other? Like, it just felt like they just went off and did their own things and like decided their own things, and then like didn't even talk. And I'm like, do you guys talk? Do you guys like spend any
communication
together?
Here, or like what's going on? Or you just like running into each other? I'm with the Black Ravens now. Of the whole conflict and stuff. Yeah.
Like, do you guys just like go out all day and then just come home and sleep? Like, I don't understand what is like happening. Like, this isn't two people who like Darius and Tourmaline knew more about each other and what was happening in each other's lives than two people who are supposedly in love and were in a relationship. So like,
oh my gosh,
like it felt a little bit forced to me, and like I understand like I'm happy again. Tourmaline gets to be happy in the end, and then it gets to be turn and knock. I just feel like Vignette should have chosen her better. Like, should have done a better job at like choosing her than just like being very wishy-washy for the whole season.
Like, let her. Also, I would have loved that she kind of started realizing a little bit of her own instead of waiting for Tourmaline to tell her.
That's true. Anyways, it should have been Tourmaline. I also hated that they killed him off in the end.
I know. Like, oh my god.
There was he saved Tourmaline, but then I feel like they also did that because then Tourmaline wouldn't have another choice. Yeah. Like, and I'm like, Vignette needs competition for Tourmaline's affection.
Exactly. Like,
right?
that would have made her realize, like, oh my God, okay, wait, he's treating her this way, and she's always been good with me, but now I see that I should be treating her just as good as he is, you know?
Yeah. Should have been like, here's how you, like...
But like I said, that's why it was like at the end, everything went too fast and it was just all convenient.
Yeah.
Like they killed him off just for that. Convenient. Just so that they could have, Tourmaline and Vignette at the end together.
Yeah. Honestly, that's essentially what it felt like at the for me at the end as well.
Mm-hmm. The whole season, I think the best character development and growth and everything was Tourmaline. Like, she was the one that actually grew and ended up better than how she started, and actually did something.
Yeah, exactly. Like, had agency and conviction, and like was actually making choices that affected the narrative, not just like running off and doing whatever individually kind of thing, right? And like she was the one that I think affected the plot the most out of all of out of the main characters. And I'm really glad to see that she got a much bigger role this season. Yeah. Really, like love the actor, love the character. I think they did a great job with Tourmaline in general.
Yeah, yeah.
Agreus and Imogen. It pissed me off that they're just like in this happy land at the end without having to like again deal with their their actions and consequences and the things.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, they just like, made the, electric company and like whatever. And then it's like, you just see, and it's like, again, they're just like in a place of privilege. The reason that they're able to be together is because her brother isn't around. Well, because they killed her brother. She killed her.
She killed him.
Right? And he would be the only one that would be in the way. Right? And that was the reason that they left in season 1. If he wasn't around, they would have been able to stay the entire time and just be in there because she lives. Because they're both very, like, she comes from a very, like, well-respected family. He's got tons of money.
Yeah.
And so then, like, who's going to be able to say anything to them? Nobody. Like, she's basically, like, well, maybe not royalty, but she's, she comes from, like, a strong family. Like, nobody's going to say anything.
Nobody's going to say anything.
Yeah. And then what annoyed me the most, though, was that they included the kid that Agreus saw when he first went into the row that had lost his eye.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're trying to make them good people and they're not. Like, they're not good people. They never were good people.
You never
No, and they never did anything to atone for it.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
yes. We never saw them
to escape.
We never saw them be like, did they even change? They didn't change.
There was no growth.
There was no change at all with them. At all.
No. They were still, if anything, they got worse.
They're enjoying something that they never even fought for. Like they're able to be together in public now, but but they didn't do anything to be able to be that way. They didn't put in the fight. Agreus didn't fight for Fae rights. Imogen didn't go and fight for equality for both of them.
No.
But now they get to enjoy the benefits of somebody else. Yeah.
But like to make it seem like they're being charitable, and it's like, oh, this poor kid, who is also a puck who happened to lose his eye. Agreus somehow, his heart finally beat once, and he like decided that he was gonna like give this kid a new life, and it's like, no.
Are you even doing anything for the rest of your Fae people? Like,
no. It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The late show that they did was all to rich people.
And for the rich people.
Yeah, and like it just felt to me like, oh, like they're starting their own, business, and they're just gonna get even more wealthy. Like,
yeah.
And I'm like,
there was no, like, it was stagnant. There was no growth, no nothing with these characters.
And as much as I wanted to sympathize with Agreus, because obviously he's also Fae. He also came from a war-torn country. He's done a lot of like terrible things, and he says that it haunts him, and yet he does nothing to improve or change or
like,
to
you know what,
anything.
I messed up, but now that I'm in this position, let me go help out the people, because I had to go against my own people to get to where I am. So now let me go and actually help them out now, because thanks to them, it's where I'm here.
Exactly. And like when he was talking about how he was like remorseful, I was sitting there and I'm like, I don't believe you. I'm like, okay, cool.
What did you do?
Then, yeah. And then he was still like perpetuating like the ideas of like, oh, like, this this is the way the system is. Like, they were runaway, you know, they had contracts or whatever that they ran away from. And so like, it's their fault. And that's why I was bringing that. He was still blaming the people, the Fae that he was capturing to be brought back into like indentured servitude, right? Like, that's not remorse to me. That's not like, you know, you had to make tough choices. It's like, no, you chose yourself and you did everything possible to...
Why did he have to keep these people indentured? There was no reason. If he really wanted to be like, you know, he knew what he went through. He knew all the messed up things, having to go through that type of servitude and having been, you know, treated the way he did. At least be like, you know what? I messed up. They should have been freed, and they should have had the option of wanting to stay with me. At least show me something. Show me something that you're trying to do some type of change.
Yeah, and he feels entitled to the money that he made, the fortune that he made through all of those like despicable acts, right? And he doesn't even want to like, that's why like the two of them didn't want to make that, you know, make things work at the commune, because they're like, nah, we're above these people. Like we have money, wealth, whatever status. And like, we shouldn't have to like stoop down to the level of these people because we worked hard for our earned nothingness. Like, you know, and he still feels entitled.
At the beginning was kind of like, you know what? No, but we're good here. We can make this work and stuff. But he kept on insisting. And then at the end, she was like, yeah, you know what? Listen, we got to be out. Let's go. We got to go.
Yeah, she was doing it for self-preservation, though.
Yeah.
Like, she was still doing it for selfish reasons, right? Because Lenora first told her, like, okay, like, here, like, it's humans, fate, doesn't matter, like, you know, and then so she's like, oh, we can be together and nobody's going to say anything, right? So, again, selfish. And then she, like, was essentially, I guess Lenora threatened her, and so then she's like, we're being threatened. So, again, it was just all self-preservation. It wasn't because she thought that this was, like, a good life or that this is something that, you know, was acceptable for her. It was just, like, whatever to survive. Yeah. And like, if Agreus really wanted to like do better, he would like use his fortune to help people because he earned his fortune on the lives of faithful. But he still, but he still had like, you know, this mentality of like, no, like everybody needs to work for whatever. And like, I work to get to my status, therefore I deserve whatever once I'm up here, and other people should have to go through all of that as well. And like, didn't, you know, and like, it's like, you understand, like you come from that community, you understand how hard it is to like, even get anywhere near where you've gotten. And yet you still look down on
the same people that you stepped all over to get to where you are, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's giving very, it's like, I mean, we see this in our communities, right? Like immigrants who come here, get privilege, whatever, good. Wealth, and then they like look down on everybody back home or other immigrants here,
that
right?
are trying
and
to do the same thing. Like, oh no, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you did this. Your family did the same thing. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're here because people did what these people are trying to do now. You know?
Exactly, and you understand why, you know, people back home or whatever are in the situation that they're in because you were in it, right? Like, it's not like they had a choice, and this is, you know, how they've accepted life for themselves. It's external circumstances that have put an entire country population, whatever, in a position that's unfavorable. And then it's hard to come out of that. I guess I really enjoy how they like kept some of the rotten people rotten.
No, that is true. I do appreciate that because, you know, it gives us this type of discourse. Like, this is, in a sense, that's how it is in real life. You know?
Exactly.
In that sense, you know, they kept it like realistic with how we can relate to how it is, you know, out in the real world. Because that's how people are out here, you know?
Yeah. I just didn't like the very last framing of the two of them being like oh, like they're... and like charitable and whatever. And like, you know, all happy and doing, you know...
Like cool trying stuff. To make it seem like okay, this is they're
happily ever after for everybody, and exactly. They get their own happily ever after, even though they don't deserve it, kind of thing. As opposed to like, you know, look at them going back to, you know, their ways again. There was no
redemption there whatsoever.
No,
at all.
None. Not even a chance.
Nothing.
No,
dude. At
they
least
learned
Vader,
nothing.
Anakin at the end was like, "Yo, I was wrong," you know, like.
Yeah, they made me. Yeah, exactly. Like the thing is, they made me like feel bad for her brother. What was it? What was his name?
His name was Ezra.
Ezra. Like Ezra was terrible in the first season, and like you hated him because of the bigotry, right? Like he doesn't want Agreus near his sister. And then season 2, you realize what she did to him, and you start feeling bad for him. I'm like, these two are so bad. You feel bad for Ezra.
For
like,
Ezra, yeah.
What is happening?
Like, how did we change? Like, when did this happen?
Yeah, it's a quite a thing when you are so bad that you like feel bad for
another bad character.
Almost murder.
Yes.
Yeah, seriously. Oh my goodness. It's
this show, man.
Yeah, but like Ezra was, I guess. Yeah, season 2, like we started seeing more that like he was trying to do right by his sister, because he is, even though he was useless in season 1, and the whole reason that Agreus was brought into the mix was because he had lost all the money, and was like, you know, terrible at being head of the family. Yeah. But there's like a difference between being like, you know, incompetent, you know, being actually evil.
Yeah. He was just dumb and a pushover.
Yeah, and just like set in his ways. Yeah, not that it's right, but like that's you know, you understand him. But I am actually really glad that they made Imogen and Agreus worse, because in season 1 you're almost rooting for them. Like, you know that they're not really great people, but they're not like evil yet, right? And you're almost like, oh, like it's like forbidden relationship, whatever. And you're kind of rooting for them. And then season 2, you're like, these two. By the end of it, I'm like, I hate seeing their faces.
That's why Ezra was like,
phenomenal job.
Ezra was like, you guys deserve each other.
You deserve each other, honestly.
Even Ezra saw that.
They really do.
Yeah.
They really do. Actors did a phenomenal job. Like the actors who played Imogen and Agreus did an amazing job. I hate the characters. I hate the characters. Oh man.
No, they did a really great job. You know, with the way the characters were supposed to be presented, they did a really awesome job with that. Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Who else? I think Millworthy might be the only one left to kind of talk about. We kind of mentioned him a little bit, but like at the end, when he like finally gets back to doing his puppet shows, I was like, "Oh, like,
that was really cute."
Came full circle. Like, it sucks that he's not in Parliament, you know, still doing change. Although I wonder how much they would have allowed him to do. Yeah. But it was like so nice to see.
He knew that he wasn't gonna have that much power. So, and then why am I gonna stress myself out at my age now? You know, trying to change when they're not gonna listen to me. And I guess maybe he also kind of figured that Philo was gonna be that one now to take on the mantle. Because again,
and he dropped the ball.
Yeah, and then he was like, no. He was like, oh my god,
screwed the pooch. No, like, it's just Philo. Oh, Philo, man, so much potential there.
So much potential
for his character to have actually like done like proper change, even throughout the entire season. Like there's moments where I'm like, what are you doing? You could be like helping out in such a significant way, and yet you're still like making poor choices. Like.
Yeah, he really had no character development either. Like he kind of stayed stagnant. Like the first season, it was like I'm helping out, you know, thing, but he's also very compassionate about the Fae and helping out the Fae and stuff. Yeah, that's how he ended. But he didn't take it a step higher of actually bringing real change to the Fae. It was just like he's just keeping it at the same street level that he did in season 1.
Yeah. And like the entire, like it felt like season 2 with a lot of his choices and decisions, he just wanted, like not wanted to be a martyr, but he like is almost like that's it. Like he just wanted to like, he was just, you know, sacrificing himself for the greater good. He was gonna like, you know, reveal who he is and whatever happens kind of thing. Like, you know, he was putting himself in like harm's way, but like he's not actually doing anything to affect real change. And it was just so frustrating. And I'm like, bro, you're not that important. Like, it's not about you. Like, I understand you think you're a key player in this, and like, you can be, but you're not right now. You're just, you know, out here like playing,
just
like,
moving mud from one place to the next, but it's still mud.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like,
you're not cleaning it up.
No, and like, yeah, he's yeah, just very like, yeah, small potatoes. That's all like, like he's just seeing like this much of what's happening. And even though he's aware of the bigger picture, this is all he's like concerned
He's just
about, like
focusing
doing
on that small part.
yeah.
When it
And I'm
should
like,
be
you
like
could have been
everything
so
else.
much work, like, so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that last chance at the end that he gave up.
Yeah, he had all that
I will
power
never understand why
right
they made that
there.
choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like it was such a deliberate choice for the showrunners and writers to make, because they gave him a whole big speech that I was zoning out of. But anyways, whole big
Yes.
speech to talk about why he wasn't going to be chancellor, but it made, again, no sense to me. And like I think the show isn't going to continue past this season, right? Even though they kind of
No.
hinted at the very end where like
No,
it's canceled after
I
a
think
season,
it was
right? Like,
the last. This was the last season, yeah. Which is
yeah,
probably
right? But at the very
why they probably
they had to wrap everything up into
everything
a neat
up so
bow.
quick. Yeah,
And I'm like, yeah.
we
But
could have
Philo does
definitely
say
had one
something.
more
I think
season.
somebody asks him. I think they could have, or at least like a mini series or something. Like I think there could have been more to explore. Because again, like we're basically back to square one. But the one I forget who it is that asked Philo towards the end, like, "What's next for you?" And he's like, I don't know, or you'll have to see, or something like that. And I was like,
it was
wait a
a
minute,
cop.
are they,
I think
like, maybe
that asked-
planning?
Was it Millworthy
Yeah,
or the cop?
I think it was.
I think it was Millworthy probably because
maybe it was Millworthy. I think it was Millworthy.
I think Millworthy was the last person that he spoke to.
I think so.
And, yeah.
And it's like, oh, you'll have to see. And I was like, are they teasing us with something? I don't know.
Oh, you're right. He did
Because
say
I thought that
you'll
this
have
was
to
like this
see.
was the series finale.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't just the season finale. And I was like, are they purposefully like not putting him as chancellor to like set something else up?
For something else,
Or
because
but
it does
doesn't
say
seem like
or is it just to leave us like us deciding?
hanging, I guess, with something.
Yeah, for something.
But yeah, I don't maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was some parts of the ending were satisfying, some parts were not.
Yeah.
Did we want to talk more about any of the real world parallels? I know we kind of chatted and touched on some of those. Was there anything else you wanted to add on that?
No, it's just that I think it was very clear, the main parallel being, having to oppress somebody that's different from you, the bigotry, the racism and stuff. And I guess we touched on the smaller things like you said, like the whole having the displacement, having people having to leave their homes because of the violence and stuff like that. I can relate to that because, in Colombia, that's a very big problem that we deal with. Also, of course, the classism, the people, your own people betraying you just for their own self-interest, like we see with the Greyes, and we see, like you said, we see that in our own communities and stuff. Yeah, I mean, they had a lot of good discourse in that sense. It definitely touched up on a lot of that.
And it was also interesting. One more thing that I just remember or thought of right now was with the Black Ravens. It was interesting how they almost turned into like a group that even the Fae didn't like. Toward like partway through or like towards the end of season 2, they were kind of like bringing on too much trouble, and people were like didn't want to be associated with a group of people that were resisting because it just consequences kept crashing harder on their heads, which understandable. And again, like very similar to like real world dynamics, when there is a group that is trying to affect change through resistance, and then who they're resisting ends up cracking down on them, everybody gets affected, and then they get blamed, even though what they were, as opposed to blaming the people who are still oppressing you,
oppressing you, yes,
right?
Yes.
That because that happens a lot. Like you just see like, oh, like you poked the bear, and so then now I'm injured, so it's your fault as opposed to looking at the bear,
so,
right?
Yes.
Who was already, the bear who was already attacking you, right? Or the right?
Yeah.
So I think like there's a lot of like reality there in terms of how certain groups and characters were treated in the show, and I thought that was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about with the show, character, story, plot, anything like that?
No, I'm just like you said, the ending was it did have some satisfactory elements in it and stuff. I really did like that Tourmaline at least got her happy ending and everything. And Millworthy finally getting to rest and do his theater stuff and everything. So But yeah, no, overall the show, I mean, it with the faults and everything, at least we had the discourse of no of being able to talk about the things of, like, agree as an Imogen and everything like that, because it's we can relate to that. We know what it is because we see it ourselves in our communities and our lives in the world and everything. So at least that we got that discourse from the show.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think the strongest part of this show is just how realistic it is, even with the ending, even though, like, I don't love how some of the, characters ended up, it is very realistic, like, in terms of how everybody ended up, how the situation ended up, and, seeing that, like, after 2 seasons worth of stories and things and conflict happening, kind of in the same spot. There's a little bit better, for some people, but like overall, like the situation, at least in the Berg, which is, what we were focused on between the Row and just Berg society.
Yeah.
Essentially back to the same way it was. At least Ternanok is now, free and everything. And some people, get a better life, but it is very realistic, even if it's not satisfactory in how things play out. So I think I do appreciate that. And I think it's, like you said, it's a really great way to be able to have, those conversations and dialogue around real world issues, because you see it so clearly in the storylines and the characters and everything in the show, with a fantastical element.
Of course, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm glad we got to see more of like the pics flying and like doing cool things.
Yes. I really did like that. I like that we saw also, like, with the witches and stuff a little bit, like, their magic and everything, because I love, like, obviously one of the main things that I love about wanting to watch Carnival Row is because of the fantastical elements, and that's what I want to see. I want to see fantastical stuff, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got to see like some more kind of new types of fae that we hadn't really seen as much of in the first season, or maybe hadn't even seen at all. So it was like, it's nice, even if they weren't like, main characters or anything, but just kind of like without even real explanation, just kind of seeing it is really cool. It's it was nice. It was nice having that magical element. And again, I really love that we got to see Ternanok at the end be like beautiful, because even in season 1 we didn't really get to see that because they were already
it wasn't
during
in
war,
conflict,
right? Exactly. And even though we did see some things with how like the fae live and or specifically the Picts, how they live and move around and stuff because they can fly, we didn't really get to see that in like in a very magical way. It was very like tactical.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So it was nice to be able to kind of, even though it was like a short glimpse,
but it was nice to see
that. Awesome. Cool. Well, we already talked about whether we think the story will continue. I think there may be something there. I don't know how compelling it would be to do like a whole other season on it. I think whatever goal they had in mind for each of the characters and the stories, I think they wrapped up really well. And so if there is another season, it would be nice to kind of maybe do like either in early days or something like that, where they kind of go back in time. Show us how everything started or the glory days. Maybe a conflict between the fae not having anything to do with the humans and stuff. Yeah, because we never really quite figure out, like, at least, I mean, I'm assuming that the humans didn't know about the fae for a really long time. And then as they went exploring and they like landed on this new continent maybe or area, then they discovered the fae, and then they like, started wanting to take their land and everything.
As humans but like,
do. Some of, exactly. But like some of that lore I think would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Is there anything else that you would want to see, if the story continues, or anything that would be like,
No, I think I would love to just go back and see that type of that world of the fae and their world as it existed back then before everything else came messed it up. That would be cool. Yeah.
Agreed. One last thing I just realized. So we binge watched this show like, back to back, but it is releasing weekly, or every, is it weekly?
Yeah, it's weekly.
But there's two episodes that are releasing weekly. What do you think that would have helped if we had watched it in that like, cadence? Do you think that would have helped with the feeling of things being rushed or a lot going on?
I think maybe because it would have been this is one show that I think would have benefited from us seeing it like, one by one, because there's other shows that actually benefits from binge watching, right? Like Kenobi or stuff like that, right? But ultimately, at the end, obviously, we would have came to the same conclusions that we have right now.
So.
You know, it would have just taken us longer to get there.
Agreed.
Yeah, it would have just taken us longer to get there. But I don't think it would have made that much of a difference. It's just that we would have, I think, maybe be able to absorb more everything, you know, slower and at a slower pace.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think it would have made like the flip-flopping with characters or like the change of like the like power and control that was happening. I think it would have made it seem less frequent.
Yeah, like so, like okay, wait, why is it happening so fast?
Yeah, because like one episode, it's like you
one thing, and then the next
one opinion. The next episode is and then it's like if there was maybe like a week in between, then you would have like had a little bit of time to
process the whole thing. Like, why is she acting this way? What's going on? You know, everything. Yeah. Yeah,
that's true. But I think binging it also still like binging it or doing it like weekly, I think we would have still had the same experience with it. Yeah. But we maybe would have like at least had a little bit of like time in between and it wouldn't feel so like jerky.
yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I think overall, like, I enjoyed the season. And like, again, there's a lot going on. but I think like once, because season 1 like set up so much foundation that they could, you know, go a little bit faster this season. And it feels like they were trying to like, you know, put a lot into this season to get it to a series finale. And like you said, they maybe like cut some stuff out or you know, like worked it in a way that made it feel a little bit faster paced, but I did enjoy the season, and I think it was nice to have. I'm glad that we got a second season and it didn't just end at the first season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Any last thoughts about the show or anything you would like to mention, talk about for the audience? Anything?
No, I think that we basically covered everything that you know that we could have said about the show. So yeah.
Awesome. Before we sign off, I want to thank you again, Kari, for being a guest on the podcast today. Do you want to let people know where to find you on social media?
Yeah, sure. I am a Star Wars Tia on TikTok and Twitter, and on Instagram you can find me at Kari Skywalker.
And then for me, again, I'm Sue's Theories or SUS Theories on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And my name is Suhaila. We want to thank everyone who tuned in today, and especially our guest for being with us today. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to hit us up on Facebook or Twitter by using the handle Temple of Geek. Do you want to check out some of our other episodes or shows? Why don't you head over to templeofgeek.com, where you will find all sorts of content that pertain to the world of geek.
Please follow us on Twitter at Temple of Geek. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Temple of Geek. And remember to visit templeofgeek.com, your one stop for all things geek.
Goodbye.
This will conclude our transmission.